Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond Procurement, the podcast by Powerweave, where we explore procurement's evolving role beyond traditional cost cutting, where we deep dive into innovation, efficiency, and strategic impact. I'm your host, Deepak Gawas, and in today's episode, we are unpacking what it really takes to bring AI into procurement, not just in theory, but in practice. And today's guest is an amazing person who has been in this field of procurement for the last 2 decades. She has been part of great companies like Novartis, Walmart, and now she is director of procurement transformation at Micron Technology. She has led global initiatives impacting over $2 billion in unmanaged spend and has a track record of implementing great and complex procurement systems into scalable ones. So please welcome Megha Singh on today's podcast, where we will dig deep into what AI ready means in procurement and how leaders can go along the way. Megha, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you for all the kind words and thank you for having me here. Excited to be here and share my experience.
Great. So let's start with your current role at Micron. What does your procurement mandate looks like typically?
Uh, sure. No, I lead the Global Procurement Center of Excellence at Micron that covers how we deliver excellence in global service delivery while managing the transformational AI projects and also ensuring that we are compliant with the global processes across Micron. The focus is on how we use technology to optimize both strategic sourcing, which is upstream, and also transactional buying, which is the downstream, and not to forget the compliance part. So my team works on everything from supplier onboarding, spot buys, contract lifecycle automations, spend analytics, and it's a full stack mandate.
Great. So, jumping from Micron to, you recently attended Gartner Symposium and, you represented Micron there. So, what were your some of your key takeaways from the event, particularly if they are about AI in procurement?
Sure. So the Gartner Symposium, which was held at Florida, is considered as one of the epitome for the procurement events. And let me just correct you. I did not represent Micron, but Micron was represented for implementing the AI solutions, especially on as a part of autonomous sourcing. And it was a wonderful experience. And One thing that stood out is how fast the conversation is shifting from what is AI to how do I deploy AI. And everybody, all those 3,500 plus members across industries who attended, they had this one question in their mind: how do I use AI, right? How do I implement it within my processes at my functions? So basically, AI isn't magic. It's a maths plus data plus processes, right? If you combine it together, then you create that magic. And I felt that many companies are skipping the hard part. They're building clean data foundations and rethinking workflows. Especially at Micron, we've seen success only when we tackle these fundamentals issues first. Yeah, so the Gartner Symposium, like told you, everything was based on AI, how we use agentic AI, how we create more agents to create and automate our workflow processes. So more on the future of how the processes would look like without humans.
Okay. So with AI as the context here, what are some of the promising use cases that you see where companies can deploy AI in procurement?
Right. I think there are a lot of use cases that companies can deploy, but let me talk about a couple of things that they can right away take it. And I'll give you examples from both upstream as well as downstream. Let me talk about upstream first. So in supplier onboarding, we use AI to validate company credentials or flag compliance risks. Savings in weeks of due diligence. If you ask anybody who is doing the supplier onboarding, you can actually see that they're wasting so much of time doing those due diligence, managing the risk, understanding the compliance part of it. Uh, So it takes a lot of human and manual efforts. So I think that is one thing where they can actually start using AI to validate the credentials. We can also pilot LLM based models to basically auto draft RFPs using the historical templates. So I think that's on the upstream side. They can actually use it. For downstream. Especially for the PO approvals, you and me and everybody in procurement knows how painful process it is. As much as creating the requisitions, which has to go through a manual process, the approval process also is a very manually task. We can deploy AI engine that can learn from past approvals and flag any anomalies. For example, if there is a buyer who consistently overrides a policy for a particular vendor, such kind of instances can be built in your LLM model so that the system recognizes the flags and the PO approvals can happen in an automated way. So I think those are the two use cases that I can right away think on top of my mind.
Great. So automating the regular stuff, automating routine stuff for flagging what is not compliant are some of the things that you mentioned. With
Mhm.
with that in mind, and now you did mention that companies or other procurement teams are asking, how do we implement AI? The
Mhm.
question is, are companies or other procurement teams mature enough to
Mhm.
implement AI, or do they have the necessary knowledge to implement AI at this point of time?
I think it's a great question, Deepak. And I think, like I mentioned, everybody wants to implement AI. Every industry, every procurement professional, everybody wants to build AI in their systems. And then the question you asked, are they mature enough? And I'll give you an honest answer. Honestly, most of what in my observation, most are still in the early phases. Maybe they are experimenting with, say, chatbots or using analytics dashboard, but maturity isn't just tech, right? You have to build the models that can actually talk about whether an AI insights are trusted and actioned. Without the trust, the adoption will stall. So they are in the early stages, I think, but they are in the right track of thinking through. Okay, I want to implement an AI model, but I think there is a lot of cleanup. There is a lot of clean data that needs to be in place for them to implement the AI models. And this is I'm telling with my past experience with some of the great organizations on how the struggles that we faced while implementing AI tools. We implemented, but then we realized that okay, the results that we are getting have to be modified because the data itself did not have wasn't that structured.
Got it. So in that case, how would you recommend if a company or a procurement team wants to start with using AI in their daily ops?
Mhm.
How would you recommend they start realistically?
Okay. I think start with a real problem. And the people who are doing the groundwork on reality are the ones who would know what the real problem is. Anything that is taking them a lot of time, anything that is causing them a lot of pain, whether it is PO approvals, whether it is invoicing issues, whether it is goods not being received on the systems, whether it is supplier compliance checks, whether it is understanding the risk. So just understand where the real problem is. Don't start with AI, for example, without understanding the real problems. We have a long tail spend leakage, right? And that's a problem. It's very difficult for organizations to reduce the tail spend, and that is something we can actually start. Then you can ask, can AI help me in this? Usually, yes, but only after you clean up the data and define your thresholds and define your workflows properly. So I think looking at every organization's current problem and talking to your teams on where they're spending a lot of manual efforts is where you can actually implement AI solutions.
Got it, Megha. That's nicely put in where the fastest way or the immediate way and how you can make an implementation relevant is to start with the current problem. And you also mentioned data as one of the challenge. So like data, what are some of the foundational gaps that you have seen when it comes to implementing AI in procurement?
Yeah. And I think again a very very valid question, and I think with my experience, especially the listeners who are trying to implement AI solutions, they can take some kind of advice, and before they are implementing the models, they can actually look at this. And I'll tell you with my experience, Deepak. The some of the big gaps, and I'll restrict to I think just three for now. One is the data quality. Okay, is your data ready to be implemented in to implement for a DI solution? Do you have the historical data? Do you have all the data content in a structured manner, or is it changing every now and then? So how data ready are you? How data ready is the organization to implement the AI solution? That's one thing. And I think especially the data, especially when you're implementing solutions for vendor master data, it is a killer because vendor master data is a constant change, and a lot of organizations do not have a real time update on that, and that's a challenge many companies face with having a structured data in place. Second example that I can give, and that's again a huge problem, is we have a lot of organizations, especially the large scale organizations, have very fragmented processes. And the more global the organization is, the more fragmented processes it is. They will have a regional process, they will have a global process, and they'll have a local process. And I think to tie up all that, it takes a lot of time. So, for example, if teams use Excel in one region, there is SAP in another region. There is no one common ERP model. So good luck in training an AI model because it has to tie up with Excel, it has to tie up with SAP, it has to tie up with any other ERP model that the organization has. So again, it's a big problem for implementing because processes are so fragmented. But it's not a discouraging thing to say, but it is a thing to reflect back before you're implementing. Maybe you start slow, region wise. You go local first, you go regional, and then you go global, depending on the problem that you're facing. That's our second problem. And third, and I think very valid, is the mindset. When I tell mindset, okay, one is the problems that we talked about are data, technical processes. Third is the mindset, and I think it's a bigger shift. That's where change plays a lot of role. Change implementation, change adoption. How do you change the mindset of people? How do you change the mindset of leaders? How do you change the mindset of your stakeholders, businesses? Right. So having those mindset, I think some still have the AI is a silver bullet. Right. They feel that it's a silver bullet. I can use it, and all my problems would be solved. No, but the mindset has to be changed. It's not. It's a toolbox, I would say, and you have to actually keep on evolving. So I would say that mindset, fragmented processes, and data quality are the three big killers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with all three, I mean, without one of them, it won't be a successful implementation the way a company wants.
Yeah.
So, and that brings on to the next one, which is quite related to the last point that you made, the culture. To ensure that your AI implementation works across procurement touch points,
Mhm.
what kind of internal collaboration is necessary for that?
Yeah. And I think, it's again a very great point. And I would say the answer is tons of collaboration. You need tons of collaboration when you're implementing an AI solution. IT is an obvious for integration. They are the ones who would be implementing, testing, and integrating a lot of our processes and tools. But also finance, they are the ones who control our costs. So finance and IT, they have to go. And then there are legal implications, right? If you're implementing an AI solution, you also have to need to check into account, what are the legal implications when you're automating contracts or due diligence is required. Their involvement is a key. We create across functional AI squads and keep everyone more aligned. I think that's very important when you're implementing an AI solution. You keep your procurement, you keep your IT, you keep your legal, you keep your compliance stakeholders involved in any solution that you're trying to implement, so that even before you're investing in such a big deal, everybody is aligned and everybody's perspective is taken into account. Because we don't want to invest a lot of thing and go there and see, okay, I can't really do it because one, it is saving me a lot of time. It is coming at a less cost eventually, but currently I do not have a scope because this is not legally okay, or we might have a compliance leak. So these are the things, the cross functional collaboration is very much needed before you implement a solution.
Oh, got it, got it. And so that was about the internal stakeholders. Obviously, to implement a solution like this, you will need an external partner who has done this and who can
Yes.
help you with this. So how would you evaluate, or what are some
Mhm.
of the best practices that you can tell us about on evaluating a partner who can help you implement AI in procurement?
Okay. Yeah. So, there have been a lot of cases where we have implemented AI solutions from, and other, I will not name the organizations wherein we used those partners, but from automating and implementing AI solutions to upstream processes to also doing the transactional level AI solutions. We have done it, and I think I can actually put together or call out some of the maybe a 5-point checklist. I would call it that I usually use for the vendor. So one, is the AI explainable? Right? I want to implement an AI solution, but is my AI capability explainable to my stakeholders? Would they be easily able to understand and comprehend what exactly is needed? Do we have a clean training data to train the AI model? Right? If we don't have the clean training data, we cannot implement the solution. Right? The solution would fail. So I think I've been stressing a lot more about data, and then it is very crucial even before we implement and find out that we are evaluating a vendor. So clean training data. Third, I would say how that AI solution would be plugged into our ERP models. Right? Is the solution SAP ready, or is the solution SAP Ariba ready, or is the solution SAP ready, Coupa ready? So how is it tying to our ERP solutions? So that's something that you can actually look into account. Is it configurable? So okay, we implemented, for example, a solution for autonomous sourcing. Is the solution configurable to your SAP Ariba? Is the configuration solution configurable to your contract management? So you need to see if the solution is configurable or not. And last but not the least, and I think every CPO and everybody would look at the ROI. Okay, what would be my return on investment if I implement this solution, and not from a 5 years range, mind you, because we usually say, okay, oh, eventually 5 years, 7 years, we will have this much of return on investment. We need to also calculate, what would be a ROI in this 1 year. Eventually, the 5 years would definitely look good, but the return on investment that we are getting right away, is it worthwhile putting that efforts? So those are the, I think, kind of checklist that one can take into account while evaluating the so many vendors. And mind you, there are so many vendors who come back with some proposals based on these only.
Great, great. Those are some great insights, Vega. So now that you have, you know, elaborated those really good best practices, or your 5 point someone checklist. So let's move on to the other one, where when leaderships want to get started with this, what are some of the biggest misconceptions these leaders typically have in mind when it comes to AI in procurement?
Yeah. Okay. And again, a very good
Fe-
question, Deepak.
Feel
And
free to add your past mistakes.
yeah, I would not say it as mistakes, but you usually go to the boardrooms, and you present your stuff to you hear this perspective, you hear what they want to be implemented, and and I no offense to anybody or any leaders, but this is something that actually is the expectation, and when you go to leaders, they do not understand what can go wrong, right? They assume that AI is like flipping a switch, okay, but it's more like adopting a new teammate. It takes training. Obviously, it takes a lot of trust to build. It needs a lot of tweaking. So when the leaders say, okay, I want to implement an AI solution, and it's like they think that, okay, I implemented a solution, my ROI is generated, it's like a flipping a switch. It's not. It's like a constant changes. How do you, first of all, how do you implement it? How do you ensure that the processes are being adopted? How do you ensure that there are continuous improvement in the current process? Who would overlook all the inefficiencies that come out of some process change and gaps? And rather than chasing a dashboard instead of outcomes, right? More or less, the leaders want to actually look at the dashboard. Okay, these are my numbers, these are the outcomes, but the real problem actually lags wherein you actually see on ground, okay, I implemented an AI solution, I took all my kudos. Okay, this is done. My skill up is done. My done. But what happens after that? How prepared is your team to handle those constant improvement, constant challenges that come, and how are you ensuring that it is being adopted, and you're not going back to your older ways of working?
Okay.
Did I answer
So
your question, Deepak?
yes, you did. And I'm just coming to the next part because you made a really excellent point, which was, it's like a teammate. It's like a new teammate. You have to give it some time. You have to ensure that it fits into your culture, into your processes. You need to train it. So it needs collaboration. So that brings on to the next important thing that I wanted to understand is how do you balance AI or automation with human judgment? Because, you as procurement leaders, you make a lot of important decisions that can impact the whole supply chain and even the costing. So how do you balance that with human judgment?
Yeah, and again, I think usually we humans are afraid of AI. That's a general tendency or an unspoken fear amongst a lot of us. Okay, AI, it's there. What will happen to my role? How would I? What will happen? Will I survive? Will I be able to adopt? And let me tell you one thing, and I always use this for my teams. Let's not fear AI. Okay, I would say artificial intelligence plus human intelligence. They will create wonders. Human intelligence will never fade away. So AI plus HI is going to create wonders. And we use AI to flag decisions, all right, not make them. It is humans who are making, especially in sourcing. We come up, the tool might come up with several quotes at a go, but it is a human who's making a decision. So human intelligence is there. So for example, if a supplier is flagged for a geopolitical risk, AI cannot take a decision there. We still need to let our category manager decide about the nuances. It's still a human intelligence that's playing a bigger role. So, to answer your question, I would say that AI plus HI is going to be the future.
Amazingly put. I like that terminology, AI plus HI. It has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that in mind, how do you see, if we just zoom out a bit from the daily ops, where do you
Mhm.
see procurement heading in the next 3 to 5 years, especially with AI as your co-pilot?
Yeah. With my observation in the last couple of years, Deepak, I see that there has been a big shift from procurement from transactional to predictive, and this is going to continue as we progress. Uh, Procurement would become less and less of transactional, with more of AI processes, agents taking over the transactional work, and it will become more predictive on how to demand, how to forecast the demand, how to negotiate probably a standard contracts, and even maybe AI tool can actually stimulate some risk scenarios before a supplier is onboarded. So I feel that we will go away from more transactional to more predictive. Thinking of AI as your procurement analyst that never sleeps, right? Unlike we humans who take a break or just go back to the process. I think the AI tools that is implemented as one of our colleague will never sleep. That will be a 24/7 support. When we come back as a human intelligence in the morning, we have all the work done by our agents, which is an AI, to our desk, which is making our life easier.
That's an amazing point. I sincerely hope that with AI as a co-pilot, the highly desired work-life balance thing comes into place. So, a lot of these things are taken care of. We focus on the important things. So this the amazing dream actually becomes true.
It will become, Deepak. I'm very sure, though, and the future is not far off, because the way the organizations are progressing towards building these models, we will hardly see or very rarely see manual processes being done by a human, and more of it but done by AI. Humans will support taking those decisions. They have everything ready on their desk. They are not doing manual transactions anymore. So I think that's a dream reality of a procurement team member, to have everything on their go, and then they are just doing the value added work.
Great, great. So one last question with that amazing, point that you made. What advice would you give to a procurement leader who is just getting started with AI? Something that he or she can use practically and not just theoretically.
Yeah, sure. I think, my advice to any leader who's starting or thinking of implementing something is, start small. Okay. Solve something real. Find out, what are the problems that your team members are facing, and show the value. Okay. You don't have to wait for a bigger strategy or long term vision to have something created. Just start. Don't wait for that. Okay. I'll have this perfect data. My data would be ready in like 6 months or 8 months. I'll have it all clean. Don't wait for that perfect data, and don't go it alone. Okay, find your internal champions, whether it is part of your IT team, whether it is a part of your operations team, who are very excited for your implementing your AI solutions, because you would need partners who are excited about this whole concept. A more enthusiastic team would enable you to succeed more, rather than a more fearful team who's afraid of implementing AI solutions. So you need to be very careful on choosing the team, and collaboration with your uh, respective functional is also important. So I would suggest that you start small, start with the real problem. Don't wait for the bigger data plan. Okay, I will start the journey after like 3 or 6 years or whatever, when my data is ready. I'm not ready. Just start.
Great, great, Vega. So, that was the last of my questions. I mean, one final one, because we have been following you on LinkedIn on all the amazing things you do, and this conversation, I believe, was truly helpful for the procurement teams. If procurement leaders want to, follow your work or reach out to you for such sessions, or know more about the amazing stuff you do, where can they reach out to you?
I think they can reach out to me, and I think LinkedIn is a great platform. I especially enjoy and learn a lot on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the best way. They can just search for Megha Singh, and currently plus Micron. It'll pop me up. I'm usually checking the LinkedIn messages over the weekends, so I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And you can obviously, I love to share some best practices with my industry experts. Always happy to swap notes from my fellow practitioners as well, so I can learn on the way from the great work that's happening across industries on how they are doing best. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best way.
Yeah, we can vouch for that because we reached out to her on LinkedIn, so she's quite active there. So, Bia, with that, I would like to conclude today's session. Big thanks to you for bringing such practical wisdom to a topic that's often overloaded with hype or too many jargons. And this is for our audience. If this episode gives you ideas or questions, feel free to reach out. We are always here to get real and unfiltered procurement conversations. Thank you again, Bega. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Deepak. It was great being here.